Who actually runs the world and what is their agenda? These people I'm about to tell you about make John D. Rockefeller look like an impoverished buffoon. Before this video begins, I need to stress that this is a very dangerous topic. Committee of 300, a friend once told me that he mentioned this topic to a family member who works in the intelligence agency, and it totally triggered this individual who works in the intelligence community in a very strange way. Not a lot of people cover this topic. I've heard some gloss over it, but according to what I'm about to start disclosing to you, it seems like this might be the very top of the food chain when it comes to global power. So to a degree, I'm hesitant to go too deep into this issue on social media, and for that reason, I am starting my very own Telegram group. It's going to be called the Forbidden Book Society because I've learned over the past few months that there's actually a surprising amount of books that are very difficult to access. You have to go out of your way to find them on these little niche marketplaces, and I have a serious problem with that because now that things are going more digital, these things can be totally erased from our existence. So in the Forbidden Book Society on Telegram, every month there'll be one book that we thoroughly go through. And it's going to be one of these books that are extremely difficult to find, and we can speak on it without having to walk on eggshells. Click on the link below and join the Forbidden Book Society on Telegram. In a few minutes, I'm going to read a list to you that is absolutely stunning. So the list is from a book that I recently found called the Committee of 300. Yes, the Committee of 300. Tip of the iceberg for what we're going to talk about in the future, but essential for understanding what the agenda is. So the list describes 21 agenda items laid out by the author of this book, who is a former British intelligence officer for MI6. His name is John Coleman. He wrote the book in 1992 after 20 years of research, in which he said he went to, of many places, the British Library Repository, which was the finest collection of information in the world. Number one, a one world government, new world order with a unified church and monetary system under their direction. So you may or may not know that several well-known figures have actually mentioned the idea of a one world government. Here's some names. So Winston Churchill, of all people, you believe that? Winston Churchill. Obviously, the former British Prime Minister, he spoke about the need for a one world government to ensure peace after World War II. In a 1947 speech, he said, quote, "Unless some effective world supergovernment can be set up and brought quickly into action, the prospects for peace and human progress are dark and doubtful," end quote. Whew. Number two, George H.W. Bush. Big old Daddy Bush, the 41st president of the United States, mentioned a new world order in his 1990 speech. He said, quote, "Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order can emerge. A new era, freer from the threat of terror, stronger in pursuit of justice, and more secure in the quest for peace," end quote.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order, where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind.
Can't say I didn't expect it from George Bush. Henry Kissinger, number three, former U.S. Secretary of State, has frequently discussed the global governance and international cooperation. In a 1994 interview, he stated, quote, "The New World Order cannot happen without U.S. participation. That is key." Remember that phrase right there. Cannot happen without U.S. participation. "As we are the most significant single component, yes, there will be a New World Order and it will force the United States to change its perceptions," end quote. I almost like you need to read that again. In a 1994 interview, Kissinger said, quote, "The New World Order cannot happen without the U.S. participation, as we are the most significant single component. Yes, there will be a New World Order, and it will force the United States to change its perceptions." I say this every day. If you question why certain politicians make policy decisions that you know are going to hurt America. They know they're going to hurt America. People say, could they really be that dumb? Why would they choose a policy that's going to make gas more expensive and fund this war? And they're complaining about carbon emissions with the gas, but meanwhile they're sending bombs to this place that are giving off higher carbon emissions. But I can't make sense of it. It's not supposed to make sense. It's supposed to weaken America so that we're more harnessable and controllable. I digress. Number 4, David Rockefeller, the influential banker descendant of the original Rockefeller, wrote in his memoirs about his advocacy for global governance. He stated, quote, "Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and my internationalist and conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the change, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it," end quote. Whew, so he was a proud globalist one world government person. Next, a little bit more of a under the radar name. Strobe Talbot, the former Deputy Secretary of State under President Bill Clinton, in a 1992 Time magazine article wrote, quote, "In the next century, nations as we know it will be obsolete. All states will recognize a single global authority. National sovereignty wasn't such a great idea after all," end quote. So we're moving on to a new part of the list right now. Number 2, the utter destruction of all national identity and national pride. The utter destruction of all national identity and national pride. Very important right here. So this is what the mass, uncontrolled, illegal immigration is all about. This is why people in Europe, see what's going on in Europe right now, especially in England right now, very timely. So they're flooding the country with people who are Muslim. People who are Muslim are committing crimes, going underreported. They're not getting in trouble for it. And then when people who are home residents of England get upset about it, get upset about a child getting stabbed to death by an illegal immigrant, the police come down hard on the actual residents of the country. What sense does that make? It doesn't make logical sense unless you're trying to utterly destroy all national identity and national pride. Because if you destroy national pride and identity, it's easier to mold that into a piece of the one world government instead of it. Like, this is no longer England. This is just one of many pieces of land in this one world government. Other things that we're seeing that have eroded a sense of national identity and pride. The whole European Union integration in the first place. I mean, what do you think would happen if you take South America and just allow people from each state to just go through state by state at will, treating it like it's the same country? Because that's what happened in Europe. All of a sudden, boom, one day went from a bunch of rival countries to a bunch of just countries acting like they're the same country. There's free transport through it, and it's been a disaster. Number 3 on this list of 21, the destruction of religion, and more especially the Christian religion. So think about legal and political challenges, cultural criticism, educational curriculum. So when it comes to stuff like not allowing teachers to say a prayer in class with their classroom, kind of pounding on religion from a cultural, entertainment, Hollywood standpoint. And look, this is exactly what happens. So young Americans are now less likely to become or remain Christian. So in the 90s, 90% of U.S. adults were Christian. In 2020, 65%. That's pretty wild. And unaffiliated has gone up. I'm sure a lot of that's because of all the scandals that have happened with these churches. But undoubtedly, Christianity is the most targeted and pounded religion out there as far as scrutiny goes and letting people get away with attacking. Number 4 is control each and every person through the means of mind control and what Brzezinski calls technocrats, which would create human-like robots and a system of terror beside which Felix Brzezinski's Red Terror would look like a children's play. So you could go a few different ways with this. You could say Operation Mockingbird, where media learned how to do some degree of hypnosis, mind control on people. You could say cell phones have a large degree of mind control on people. You could say potentially social media and maybe Neuralink in the future. Don't think they have this one perfected yet, but I think the first three, it's either happened or it's well on its way. Number 5, this is one that really upsets me the most. So, an end to all industrialization and the production of nuclear generated electric power in what they call, quote, the post-industrial growth society. Exempted are the computer and service industries. United States industries that remain will be exported to countries such as Mexico, where abundant slave labor is available. Unemployables in the wake of industrial deconstruction will either become opium, heroin, or cocaine addicts, or become statistics in the elimination process, which is today known as Global 2000. We'll get to that later. So you can see manufacturing as a share of employment in the United States went from 33% in 1947 to about 8 or 9% in 2015. Manufacturing as a share of US GDP went from 27% in 1951 to about 12% in 2015. And nuclear, so until you see these numbers, you don't realize how powerful of a thing nuclear is compared to the other stuff they're trying to spend billions of dollars on in subsidies. So look at this, ready? Nuclear, 92% capacity factor, and capacity factor means the percentage of time that an energy source is able to generate energy. So 92% of the time, a nuclear reactor will be generating electricity. Geothermal, 74, natural gas, 56, hydropower, 41, coal, 40, wind, 35, and solar, 24% of the time it's able to generate electricity. And on top of that, look at the cleanest source of energy. So this picture right here shows CO2 equivalent emissions per gigawatt hour of electricity over the lifetime of a power plant. So coal, it is 820, oil, 720, natural gas, 490. Then biomass, take a huge drop down to a range of 78 to 230. Hydro, 34, solar, 5, wind, 4, and nuclear, the cleanest of them all at 3. So not only is nuclear by far the most powerful and reliable source of energy, but it's the cleanest source of energy. And that's what makes this chart right here really sad. This is nuclear reactor installments in the United States since 1970. Look at that, a good amount of activity, 70 through 90, then boom, nothing. We had one go up in 2016, and I believe we're supposed to have one go up, have one up in 2023. Not sure if that went through or not, but and then this picture on the right is globally. So big spike in the 70s, 80s, 90s, and then nothing. That's the amount of influence these people have. It says it right there. An end to all industrialization and the production of nuclear generated electric power in what they call the post-industrial zero growth society. Number 6, legalization of drugs and pornography. So this blue chart from Statista here is the number of substance abuse treatment clients receiving methadone in the US from 2007 to 2020. So the number almost doubled. It went from 262,000 in 2007 to 408,000 by 2019. It only goes up to 2020. I'm sure the reason it drops in 2020 is because the places were less accessible. And I'm sure that was a big problem for people. I mean, actually, look at this chart right here. So national drug overdose deaths, number among all ages, skyrocketing, just skyrocketing. And the top one, synthetic opioids, other than methadone, primarily fentanyl. Yep. And then I threw some porn stats in here because it says for number 6, legalization of drugs and porn. So ready? Check this out. This is insane. So 4% of all websites are porn-related websites. 13% of web searches, all web searches are porn-related searches. And then 20% of all mobile searches are for porn. Percent of U.S. adults aged 18 to 35 who watch porn at least weekly, men 87%, women 28%. And then 60% of porn websites are hosted in the US, 26 Netherlands, 7% UK, 1% Germany. But all these Western countries that are most likely to be influenced by whoever the powers that be are that you choose to identify with. Number 7, I don't think this one has really come to fruition. I think the author might have read this the wrong way or interpreted it the wrong way. So 7 says, depopulation of large cities according to the trial run carried out by the Pol Pot regime in Cambodia. So I don't think we're seeing depopulation of large cities. I think we're seeing an increase in the population of large cities. They're trying to kind of congregate us all together in these like little 15-minute city areas. Number 8, suppression of all scientific development except for those deemed beneficial by the committee, especially targeted as nuclear energy for peaceful purposes. Particularly hated are the fusion experiments presently being scorned and ridiculed by the committee as its jackals of the press. Development of the fusion torch would blow the committee's consumption of, quote, limited natural resources right out the window. A fusion torch, properly used, could create unlimited, untapped natural resources from the most ordinary sources. The fusion torch would benefit mankind in a manner which is as not yet even remotely comprehended by the public. Now, just to go off this, because I'm very familiar with this hidden technology concept, we stumbled upon that earlier this year because of the great documentaries like The Lost Century. Check it out if you haven't seen it. So we know there's the 1952 Invention Secrecy Act, which has over 6,000 patents currently banned from public view because it would be economically detrimental or harmful, blah, 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 blah. Solar panels, by law, cannot be more than 20% efficient, yet we're perfectly fine with cranking out billions of dollars in subsidies every year to build solar panels across the entire country, which so much mining has to be done to build those things. They don't work all the time. They last like 20 years, maybe. And you're limiting, by law, you can look this up, how efficient they could be. What are we doing here? I mean, I ask rhetorically because I know exactly what we're doing here. That's why we're reading this. And then, again, if you watch The Lost Century, you'll see nearly a dozen inventors died under mysterious circumstances when they were creating these world-changing patents for abundant energy sources. This guy, he built a water-powered car, poured a gallon of water into it, was able to drive coast to coast on a gallon of water. And he just miraculously died as he was eating at a diner one day. Just popped up. Just like, they got me. And poof, dead. Number 9, caused by means of limited wars in the advanced economies and by means of starvation and disease in third world countries. Here we go. The death of 3 billion people by the year 2000. So they didn't make that mark. This was him being channeling his inner Alex Jones here. I love Alex Jones. He gets most things right, just like this guy Coleman, I believe. So people they call useless eaters. Remember that term. This is 1992. Who uses that term? Yuval Harari. Not an original term. He's grabbing that term from whoever coined it first back here in this world, this thought process of eliminating billions of people from existence. So the Committee of 300 commissioned Cyrus Vance to write a paper on the subject on how to best bring about such genocide. And the paper was produced under the title of Global 2000 Report and was accepted and approved for action by President Carter for and on behalf of the U.S. government and accepted by Edwin Muskie, the Secretary of State, under the terms of the Global 2000 Report. The population of the United States is to be reduced by 100 million by the year 2050. So I don't know what to make of the validity of this one, but I did find the PDF of the Global 2000 Report addressed to 1980, printed for the use of the Joint Economic Committee. So this is a real thing. Make of it what you will. Number 10, to weaken the moral fiber of the nation and to demoralize workers in the labor class by creating mass unemployment as jobs dwindle due to the post-industrial zero growth policies introduced by the Club of Rome. Demoralized and discouraged workers will resort to alcohol and drugs. So check this out. 1.3 trillion in welfare spending in the US in 2023. And then on the right here, it's a history of welfare in one graph. Pretty insane. So that's the description right there. Weaken the moral fiber of the nation, demoralize workers in the labor class by creating mass unemployment. Yep. They sure did that here. 11, to keep people everywhere from deciding their own destinies by means of one create crisis after another. Then managing such crises, This will confuse and demoralize the population to the extent where faced with too many choices, apathy on a massive scale will result. We've definitely seen a lot of crises. 2020, 2008, the War on Terror, 9/11, and a lot of us think that there's some BS there for a lot of them, even Hurricane Katrina. Number 12, to introduce new cults and continue to boost those already functioning, which include rock music, gangster rap, such as Mick Jagger, the Rolling Stones, and the Tavistock created rock group, which began with the Beatles. Could probably even throw in a lot of the NWA rap groups in there too, because they accomplish the same outcome. Number 13, to continue to build up the cult of Christian fundamentalism begun by British East India Company's servant Darby, which will be misused to strengthen the Zionist state of Israel through identifying with the Jews through the myth of God's chosen people, and by donating very substantial amounts of money to what they mistakenly believe is a religious cause in the furtherance of Christianity. So I will leave that up to the masses to decide whether or not it's false belief or whatever to donate money there, because I know it's not a good idea to advocate against donating money there, because things happen to those people that say stuff like that. But he was definitely right about it, that we're going to be sending a lot of money that way. Number 14, to press for the spread of religious cults such as Muslim Brotherhood, Muslim fundamentalism, the Sikhs, and to carry out experiments of the Jim Jones and Son of Sam type murders, MK Ultra. Here's a freaking wild one. It is worth noting that the late Ayatollah Khomeini was a creation of British Intelligence Military Intelligence Division 6, commonly known as MI6, as Coleman reported in his book in 1985, What Really Happened in Iran. I'm trying to find that freaking book. I have so many Coleman books here, and they're hard to find. Very hard to find. But look where we are now. They did this shit to Iran, and now we're getting dragged into war with Iran, potentially. Number 15, to export religious liberation ideas around the world, so as to undermine all existing religions, but more especially the Christian religion. 16, to cause a total collapse of the world's economies and engender a total political chaos. Yep, we're seeing that playing out. It happened in 2008 to a degree too. 17, to take control of all foreign and domestic policies of the United States. Oh, kind of like the WHO in 2020. How about that? Or kind of like the UN Charter saying that we are obligated to take asylum-seeking immigrants into our country. Oh, really, UN? You tell us what to do? That's interesting. Who made that decision? Looks like this group right here did. Number 18, to give the fullest support to supranational institutions such as the United Nations, the International Monetary Fund, IMF, the Bank of International Settlements, BIS, the World Court, and as far as possible, make local institutions of lesser effect by gradually phasing them out or bringing them under the mantle of the United Nations. Disgusting, but it is definitely happening. I'm afraid of the IMF SPR becoming the new reserve currency. It's definitely not going to be another country. Number 19, penetrate and subvert all governments and work from within to destroy the sovereign integrity of nations represented by them. Booyah! That's what's happening in the UK and all across Europe, and definitely in America when Trump's not in office, if you hadn't noticed. Number 20, organize a worldwide terrorist apparatus and negotiate with terrorists whenever terrorist activities take place. Number 21, take control of the education in America with the intent and purpose of utterly and completely destroying it. You mean like teaching 5-year-olds that they should change their gender and that teaching them there's 100 genders? So guys, we have 7, 8, 9, 10 of these that have happened already. 5 that are kind of like in that fuzzy middle ground spot, and then 6 that have not happened. And I am of the belief that this is reversible. Don't give up on it, but a lot of the stuff is happening or being pushed. Make of that what you will. highly recommend you get yourself a copy of this book. It was very hard to get. It's probably going to become increasingly harder to get now that people start buying it. Get yourself a copy. Talk about it with your friends. And let's save this place. Shit. Got some powerful opposition. Love y'all. If you're watching, you're a patriot. If you're a patriot, there's a lot of people that don't like that, apparently. So let's see what happens. Love you. God bless. Like and subscribe.